The night stretches endless across the East African plain, a vast ocean of grass whispering under the breath of a cold wind. Somewhere in the dark, a lion exhales, deep, thunderous, the sound of hunger made flesh. The air trembles. The stars above blink like eyes of silent watchers, ancient and cruel. A faint glow trembles behind a ring of thorns, the ghost of firelight. Shadows move within, a mother drawing her child close, her heartbeat quick but steady, the rhythm of defiance in a world built to devour. Beyond the barrier, eyes reflect in the dark, golden, patient, calculating. Each glint is a question of survival, each breath a negotiation with death. The scent of blood and ash rides the wind. The hyenas laugh, circling. The acacia thorns creak in the wind like bones straining not to break. Every sound, every movement is a choice, to fight, to flee, or to vanish. And yet, through this orchestra of teeth and shadow, the family sleeps. No walls of steel, no guns, no lights, no alarms. Only nature, weaponized by understanding. For 4,000 years, African civilizations faced a nightly question that seems impossible to modern logic. How can a human being sleep safely in a land ruled by predators? Across the ages, the African night was the ultimate test of design, a living battlefield between intelligence and instinct. Here, evolution wrote its laws in blood. The predators had the advantage, faster, stronger, sharper. Humans had only fire and thought. But something extraordinary happened. While most of the ancient world built monuments to gods, Africans built sanctuaries for sleep, silent masterpieces of defense, crafted in mud, stone, and living thorn. These weren't mere shelters. They were equations written in instinct, geometry, and fear. Each wall, each pattern, was an answer to a problem no modern engineer has truly solved: how to rest in peace among killers. Modern logic stumbles at this contradiction. Drop a 21st century human into the savannah, and they would not last a single night. Yet thousands of years ago, entire villages slept unguarded beneath the same stars, surrounded by lions, hyenas, leopards, and crocodiles, and woke every morning to another sunrise. Archaeology calls them enclosures. Anthropology calls them cultural adaptations. But the truth lies deeper, in a design philosophy so profound it feels almost sentient, a union of psychology, biology, and engineering that turned fragility into survival. Because these people were not merely avoiding predators, they were studying them, decoding behavior, measuring risk, weaponizing nature itself. And when the first stones were laid at sites like Thimlich Ohinga, a revolution began, one that would reshape architecture, ecology, and even the definition of what it meant to be human. But the evidence reveals something astonishing. It began with a ring of stone deep in the hills of western Kenya, a place called Thimlich Ohinga, meaning frightening, dense forest. Archaeologists arrived expecting ruins of a fortress. What they found was a survival machine, built centuries before the age of cities. The enclosure's walls stand over 2.5 meters high, built entirely from unmortared stone, each slab locked like vertebrae, flexible, alive, and almost impossible to topple. Radiocarbon dating placed its construction at around 1,000 years ago, long before European fortifications reached similar structural logic. There were no signs of royal chambers, no palaces, no altars, only defense, layered, instinctive, absolute. The walls curve with mathematical precision, absorbing shock from impact. Narrow gates channel movement like arteries, allowing entry only in single file. At night, guards needed no light. Their pathways were memorized, their ears trained to every shift of wind or hoof. Inside, smaller circles of stone divide families, livestock, and supplies. Each household was a fortress within a fortress, protected by barriers of acacia thorn, whose chemical scent alone repelled many predators. Where modern man builds with steel and fear, they built with rhythm and pattern, each wall a song against extinction. And yet, even that wasn't the first. Digging deeper into the soil, researchers unearthed layers of habitation, some dating back nearly 2,500 years. Generations upon generations rebuilt the same idea, refining it, not by blueprint, but by blood memory. These ancient Africans had discovered something primal, Sleep could be engineered, safety could be built, and that was only the beginning. To modernize, Thimlich Ohinga looks like a pile of stones, random, crude, archaic, but to the ancient mind, it was a calculated organism, a structure that breathed, listened, and adapted. Each wall was constructed without mortar, yet stronger than cement. The builders used a method now known as dry stone core belling, layering rock with minuscule tilts so the weight pressed inward, never outward. No stone stood alone. Every block distributed stress to its neighbors, like muscle tissue holding bone. This was not trial and error. It was centuries of geological intuition. By day, the walls trapped shade and redirected airflow, cooling the interior. By night, the dense stone absorbed and released stored heat, maintaining near constant temperature. Predators sensed neither scent nor movement from within. Their own hunting instincts were turned against them. Sound waves, too, were tamed. The curvature of each corridor diffused noise, preventing echoes that might alert the beasts outside. The entrances, always facing leeward, aligned against prevailing winds. This meant that the scent of livestock, the heartbeat of sleeping humans, never drifted beyond the perimeter. They lived in silence, in scentless shadows, perfectly hidden within the heartbeat of the land, but their brilliance didn't end with stone. They combined architecture with biological defense, burning selected herbs and acacia resin to create natural repellents that clung to skin and air. Their fires were small, controlled, oxygen efficient, and producing more smoke than flame. To a lion's nose, the scent meant danger. To a human's lungs, it meant safety. It was architecture merged with chemistry, primitive at a glance, yet functionally flawless. And what they did next changed everything we thought we knew about prehistoric survival. The genius of the African night was not isolated. From the highlands of Ethiopia to the dunes of the Sahara, a silent network of similar systems emerged, stone walls whispering the same geometry, the same science separated by centuries and deserts. In Ethiopia's Konso terraces, tribes carved living fortresses into mountain spines, layered villages of stone that breathed with the earth. Each terrace acted as both barrier and shield, deflecting predators, conserving heat, and guiding rainfall into narrow channels. The walls weren't just protection, they were memory, each generation adding a layer, each stone a lesson in survival. Further west in the Sahel and Mali, the Telem people built their homes high in the Bandiagara cliffs, unreachable except by narrow ledges hidden in shadow. From below, it looked like the mountain had grown eyes, lions, leopards, even invading tribes, all thwarted by gravity itself. Their architecture was both strategy and faith. If the land could not defend them, they would make the land become their defense. Across southern Africa, the Zulu kraals followed the same logic. Circular enclosures with livestock at the center, humans on the perimeter, and thorny palisades woven tight as spider silk. This configuration wasn't random. It made the kraal a living alarm. The cattle would sense predators first, their movements stirring the humans awake before a single roar was heard, and even across the ocean at an early indigenous, American or Australian Aboriginal camps, traces of parallel reasoning appear. Circular living formations, scent-masking fires, elevated sleeping areas. Different worlds, same conclusion. Human survival demanded more than strength. It required pattern recognition. Each culture, though isolated by oceans, seemed to reach the same answer, as if instinct itself carried architectural blueprints. Walls became lungs, fires became signals. Communities became immune systems. Against the wilderness, every discovery deepened the mystery. How did scattered peoples, thousands of miles apart, think with one mind and dream the same defense against the dark? And as the evidence mounts, one truth becomes harder to ignore. Ancient Africans may not have just survived nature. They may have taught the world how to outthink it. Night in ancient Africa was not just darkness, and it was a breathing presence, a mother's heartbeat, timed with the crackle of a fire, a father's shadow moving silently to check the perimeter wall, children sleeping beneath, hides that smelled of smoke, milk, and stone. Inside the enclosure, time slowed. Every gesture had purpose, a ritual carved from repetition. The woman grinding ash with crushed roots to make insect repellent, the boy stacking stones in a crescent, imitating the elders, the old man whispering stories that were really maps, instructions hidden inside myth. They didn't speak of survival as we do now, as a contest against nature. For them, it was a dialogue. The wilderness was a teacher, not an enemy. Every howl, every footprint, every flicker of eyes from the bush carried a message: respect the night, and it will let you live. Within these small societies, knowledge was inheritance. A child didn't inherit wealth, they inherited instinct. When to light the smoke fire, where to position sleeping mats so the wind carried scent upward, not outward, which herb disguised the smell of blood, which silence meant safety, and which silence meant death. And then, the lullaby. A soft hum in an ancient tongue, rhythmic and low. It wasn't just song, it was frequency, low enough to calm the mind, steady enough to blend with the heartbeat, a natural sedative. The predators beyond the wall could not distinguish the sound from wind. The children slept, the walls stood, and humanity, fragile, exhausted, unarmed, made peace with a continent that could devour them in seconds. Every generation repeated this ritual of preparation, silence and humility. The architecture might have guarded their bodies, but it was this shared rhythm that guarded their souls. To understand how ancient Africans slept among predators, we must look beyond stone and ritual, into the biology of survival itself. For millennia, the human body was an instrument finely tuned to the African night. Before cities and clocks, it obeyed the rhythm of stars and firelight. Cortisol levels spiked at dusk, sharpening senses. Pupils widened, hearing expanded to low frequencies, the rumble of paws in tall grass, the flutter of wings, the rustle of breath near water. Even sleep was strategic. Unlike our modern deep, continuous slumber, early humans practiced segmented sleep, short bursts of light rest, alternating with alert micro-wakings every few hours. Their brains adapted to danger, entering a state between wakefulness and dream. A single snap of a twig could pull them to full awareness. No alarm clocks. No adrenaline crash. Just pure conditioned vigilance and scent, their greatest weapon of all. Science shows that human olfaction was once far more sensitive. Men and women living in predator-rich regions developed an olfactory acuity close to that of modern wolves. They could detect rain before it fell. They could sense carrion, or the musk of a lion's trail long before sight confirmed it. This awareness wasn't magic. It was evolution's reward for fear mastered, not avoided. The herbs they burned, acacia, sage, lemongrass, and wild basil, weren't chosen by superstition alone. Modern chemical analysis reveals these plants release compounds rich in citronellol and tannins, natural repellents to both insects and large mammals. The smoke formed an invisible barrier, masking human pheromones and blood scent. Even fire placement was scientific. Fires burned low and cool, releasing dense smoke near the ground, creating a chemical camouflage layer less visible to nocturnal predators who hunted by smell rather than sight. This was chemistry without lab coats, engineering without blueprints. And then there was the human voice, slow, rhythmic, low-pitched. Biologists now know that deep, repetitive vocal frequencies can stabilize heart rate and reduce cortisol, a biological lullaby designed by evolution itself. Every instinct, every molecule, every nerve worked in unison to perform a single act, to survive the night. The deeper scientists looked, the more impossible it seemed. How could people with no written language, no instruments, no data, understand the living mathematics of fear, fire, and biology so perfectly? For decades, historians dismissed these systems as primitive intuition, but when researchers tried to disprove them, the results were astonishing. In 2019, a team from the University of Nairobi recreated a scaled replica of a traditional stone enclosure based on the ruins of Thimlich Ohinga. No mortar, no modern ceiling, just local basalt and the same circular geometry recorded in oral histories. They placed motion sensors, scent analyzers and thermal cameras inside the enclosure. Then they released the night. For 6 hours, wild hyenas, jackals, and a single lion passed within meters of not one approached. The enclosure trapped human scent so efficiently that predator sensors registered only background levels, no trace of life. Inside, temperature inside the enclosure fluctuated by less than 4 degrees C, compared to 12 degrees C outside. Sound pressure dropped by 40% within 5 meters of the wall, and the acoustic equivalent of a whisper swallowed by stone. It was no accident. It was design. In another study conducted in Botswana, anthropologists recreated the traditional smoke fire systems used by nomadic herders. They burned acacia, baobab bark, and wild basil beneath a domed hide tent. Chemical assays revealed high concentrations of limonene and eucalyptol, compounds that disrupt predator scent receptors. Infrared imaging showed a visible reduction in mammalian detection ranges by nearly 60%. Even modern military researchers took notice, comparing the technique to passive infrared masking used in stealth technology. Ancient Africans had effectively developed the biological version of stealth camouflage centuries before radar existed, and then came the final test. Zoologists recreated a predator audio simulation, recorded roars, movement sounds, and low-frequency growls, and placed volunteers in both open terrain and reconstructed enclosures. In the open, participants showed cortisol spikes and elevated heart rates. Inside the enclosure, both dropped to resting levels within minutes. The walls didn't just protect bodies, they calmed minds. Stone as therapy, fire as medicine, silence as armor. At dawn, when the experiment ended, the researchers recorded one final line in their notes, a simple phrase that echoed across time. It worked, flawlessly. We sleep today surrounded by alarms, motion detectors, and reinforced locks. Yet somehow we have never felt more exposed. Our cities hum with surveillance, but our instincts have gone silent. We have traded awareness for comfort, and in doing so, forgotten the oldest human art, the architecture of survival. 800 years ago, every night was a war between flesh and fang, and yet, families slept peacefully beneath walls of stone and living thorns, wrapped not in technology but in knowledge. Their safety wasn't bought. It was earned. Every wall was a memory. Every design a story written in fear, in observation, in love for those who had to wake up alive. We call ourselves advanced because our lights never go out. But they survived when the world itself wanted them gone. They learned to turn danger into design, to use silence as signal, and to make the earth itself their guardian. We build to dominate nature. They built to understand it. And through that understanding, they outlived the monsters that stalked them. Their fortresses still stand, their science still works, and their lesson still whispers through the wind of the savannah. That the true genius of humanity isn't in steel or circuitry, it's in the refusal to accept fear as fate. Because their greatest invention wasn't fire, nor stone, nor shelter. It was the courage to look into the eyes of the dark and sleep anyway.